It's 7 p.m. Tuesday, September 10th, here in Seoul.
And these are the top stories at this hour. The entire crew of a South Korean cargo ship that capsized 2 days ago in the U.S. has been rescued, including 4 South Koreans who had been trapped inside. Exact cause of the accident is yet to be found.
North Korea again fires projectiles towards the East Sea just hours after a senior Pyongyang official said the regime is willing to resume nuclear talks with the U.S.
Concerns grow over Japan's possible disposal of radioactive wastewater into the Pacific Ocean after Japan's environment minister officially tells the press that dumping thousands of tons of nuclear wastewater into the ocean is the only option.
And the government announces plans to help South Korea's small businesses break out online and overseas. One of the ways they'll do that is through this channel, Arirang TV. NEWSCENTER begins now.
Hello and welcome to Arirang News Center. Live from Seoul, I'm Han-daeun.
And I'm Noadam. Thank you, as always, for joining us this evening. We begin with some good news of a Korean cargo ship that capsized in waters off the U.S. state of Georgia. The final 4 South Korean crew members who had been trapped inside the ship's engine room were safely rescued and are in good condition.
Well, investigation is underway to find out what exactly caused the giant ship to tilt over. President Moon has sent a letter to President Trump to express gratitude. Our Chuseok has the latest.
At around 6 p.m. on Monday, local time, the U.S. Coast Guard tweeted that all 24 crew members aboard the Golden Ray have been rescued and are in stable conditions.
Once we got the first 3-inch hole in today, they were able to be passed water, and we were able to get them food and some fresh air. And that's probably the biggest. And whether they were together, no.
Following the news that all crew members were rescued and safe, President Moon Jae-in sent a letter to U.S. President Donald Trump and thanked the timely rescue efforts by the U.S. Coast Guard. He also sent a separate letter to the commander of the U.S. Coast Guard and thanked the courage they showed during the rescue operations. Meanwhile, authorities are yet to find the cause of the accident. But an eyewitness known as Roberts earlier told the local media that as the ship was departing from the port, another vessel known as the Emerald Ace came into the port, after which the Golden Ray capsized. The witness said it was too dark to tell what really happened between the two ships. Chuseok, Arirang News.
North Korea, after a silent few weeks, fired yet another round of projectiles early this morning. While the South Korean military is still analyzing the projectiles, their flight path appears to show that Pyongyang is increasingly confident about its weapons capabilities. Our Lee Ji-won tells us why.
The Joint Chiefs of Staff announced Tuesday morning that North Korea fired 2 short-range projectiles earlier in the day toward the East Sea from an inland site in Pyeongnam-do province. The first one was fired at around 6:53 a.m., followed by another one about 20 minutes later. One is reported to have flown roughly 330 kilometers, the other some distance less than that, and they are reported to have reached an altitude of 50 to 60 kilometers. The type of projectile is still unidentified, but the South Korean military says it's analyzing the projectiles together with the U.S. While maintaining a readiness posture, the JCS criticized the North for raising tensions on the peninsula and again urged the North to cease such acts. Soon after the news, South Korea's National Security Council convened an emergency meeting led by the nation's security chief, Chung Eui-yong. According to the Blue House, the council expressed grave concerns over North Korea's continued missile launches over the past several weeks. It's been 17 days since the North fired 2 projectiles from what it claimed was a newly developed multiple rocket launcher. And this is the regime's 10th streak of tests this year. But it's only the second time the missiles have flown over land. Experts say firing missiles over densely populated areas shows that the North is confident in its missiles' accuracy and flying ability. Observers also point out that they flew at a lower altitude than earlier missiles from the multiple rocket launcher, hinting that they might be harder for South Korea's air and missile defense to shoot down. Meanwhile, with Seoul and Tokyo getting closer to the end of their military information sharing pact, Japan has not yet requested for information on Tuesday's launch. 이지원, Arirang News.
That test launch of projectiles by North Korea this morning came only a matter of hours after its vice foreign minister said the regime is willing to come back to the nuclear negotiation table. Our Oh Jung-hee has more on North Korea's possible motives.
Pyongyang reaches out to Washington for dialogue and at the same time shows off its weapons capabilities. Late Monday, Pyongyang's first vice foreign minister Choi Sun-hee issued a statement. She said the North is willing to engage in some comprehensive discussions with the U.S. in late September. She added, however, that the U.S. would have to come to the table with a, quote, new approach, something the regime's leader Kim Jong-un called for in his speech in April. But only a few hours later, the North test-fired a couple of as-yet unidentified projectiles. And it was apparently confident in this technology since the projectiles flew right over North Korea's own territory, coming down 330 kilometers to the east in the sea. Pyongyang's immediate testing of projectiles could raise some eyebrows about how sincere it is about dialogue, but North Korea experts say the regime is surely aware of that and juxtapose these two actions strategically.
Choi's statement yesterday is a little different from the North regional stance. Pyongyang used to claim that it will come to the table only if the U.S. has a new approach, but now it says it will first come to the table. It's actually conceding to what U.S. has been calling for. But so it doesn't look like that. The North is launching projectiles at the same time.
Pundits say the North also feels the need to test weapons to dispel its security concerns because South Korea is adopting new weapons like the F-35A stealth fighter jets. The North has recently carried out 10 launches, testing 4 new weapons, which means the regime is still verifying their performance. The continued testing of projectiles, observers say, means that when the North meets with the U.S. next time, it might raise the issue of security guarantees rather than sanctions relief. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
U.S. Special Representative for North Korea Stephen Biegun held phone talks this morning with his South Korean counterpart Lee Do-hun. Seoul's foreign ministry says the two discussed practical ways to achieve complete denuclearization and permanent peace on the Korean peninsula, while agreeing to meet for further discussions in the near future. Lee Do-hun is reportedly planning to visit Washington next week for talks with Biegun. As their phone conversation came soon after North Korean Vice Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee expressed willingness to resume talks, it's widely believed that their main focus was to set the stage for possible Pyongyang-Washington nuclear talks. President Moon Jae-in has again called for the strengthening of the country's parts and materials industry, which he says is crucial to the Korean economy. His claims came during an on-site cabinet meeting held at a government-funded research institute that focuses on localizing technologies. Our Park Hee-jun has the details.
President Moon Jae-in has reaffirmed his government's determination to strengthen South Korea's competitiveness in parts and materials. According to the president in a cabinet meeting Tuesday, the next century of the Korean economy depends on it.
소재 부품 장비 산업 경쟁력 강화는 경제 강국을 위한 국가 전략 과제입니다. 한일 관계 차원을 뛰어넘어 한국 경제 100년의 기틀을 세우는 일입니다.
President Moon says strengthening the industry, especially through localization, will allow Korea to rebound as a manufacturing powerhouse. And because the producers of industrial materials are mostly smaller companies, nurturing the industry will mean nurturing those firms. The president explained that it will lead to more collaboration between companies large and small. He added that it could help respond to the growing uncertainties in the global economy and rising trade protectionism. The cabinet also approved the launch of a presidential committee on enhancing local competitiveness in those sectors as a response to Japan's trade restrictions. President Moon says it will lead efforts to support relevant firms and policies. He also vowed to double government funding for related R&D next year. For that, Seoul's Trade Ministry reported to the president that it will inject around $183 million into the supplementary budget. Instead of gathering at the Blue House as usual, the cabinet met at the Korea Institute of Science and Technology in Seongbuk-gu, northeastern Seoul. The institute has been spearheading the localization of technology, producing miraculous developments, according to Moon, in steel, shipbuilding, semiconductors, and cars. The president inspected its progress in localizing parts and materials technology.
이 공정에서도 예를 들면 일본의 뭐 부품 소재가 꼭 필요한 그런 게 있습니다.
여기서는 지금 여기 세 개 장비는 프랑스 장비고요. 수입해야 될 그런 재료는 필요 없습니다.
Later in the day, President Moon made a surprise visit to a one-stop service center at the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which helps Korean firms in their difficulties getting supplies of key parts and materials due to Japan's export curbs. The president asked that the center continue to swiftly assist the companies in resolving their problems. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
Strong backlash is expected from Japan's neighbours following a controversial remark by a Japanese official who claimed that there is no other way to dispose of radioactive water leaks from the Fukushima power plant other than to discharge them into the ocean. According to local media, Japanese Environment Minister Yoshiaki Harada told reporters on Tuesday that he thinks the only option left to deal with the contaminated water is to drain it into the sea and dilute it. The remarks came as Japan's Tokyo Electric Power is said to be running out of room to store the radioactive water that was used to keep fuel cores from melting since a powerful earthquake back in 2011. In response, South Korea's foreign ministry said that the remarks are not Japan's official stance, adding that the Seoul government is keeping a close watch on Tokyo's movements. Stressing that the issue deals with the public's health and security, the ministry asked Japan to take a wise and prudent decision on the matter. Millions of South Koreans will be travelling to their hometowns over the Chuseok holiday to spend time with their family. But that means a lot of traffic on the nation's highways. Our Lee Min-sun takes a look at the traffic forecast for Chuseok and some ways the government will be trying to keep things moving.
Chuseok is one of Korea's biggest holidays, and it's also the time when people spend long hours on congested roads. This year, most people will get 4 days off in a row from Thursday through the weekend. The Transportation Ministry has announced special traffic measures starting Wednesday. A total of 33.5 million people are expected to travel starting that day, and over 86% of them will go by car. Because this year's holiday is relatively short, most people leaving Seoul are expected to hit the road Thursday morning and come back Friday afternoon. On average, there will be some 5 million cars on highways each day, which is 7.5% more than last year. Chuseok travelers should brace for a long trip. Drive times to major cities could be up to an hour and 50 minutes longer than last year. From Seoul to Busan by car, an estimated 8.5 hours. Real-time traffic information is available on the website of the traffic authorities and on mobile applications. To help, the government will add extra capacity on buses and trains, on average an additional 1,300 express buses per day, another 100,000 seats on the high-speed trains, and 34,000 seats on the regular trains. The government says it's also conducted security checks on the highways, trains, airports, and seaports to ensure safety and is prepared to deal with emergencies. Lee Min-sun, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the Seoul Metropolitan Government will implement special traffic measures for the upcoming Chuseok holiday to help people travel more conveniently and safely. For the day of Chuseok, which falls on Friday, and the day after, the subway and public buses will run until 2 a.m. There will also be an extra 3,100 taxis on the roads at night during the holiday. More than 520 emergency rooms will be open round the clock across the country, but many smaller clinics will be closed. For non-emergencies, about 6,800 hospitals, clinics and pharmacies nationwide will be open from Thursday to Sunday. More information can be found by visiting the city's website, contacting the Tasan call centre at 120 or by calling 119 in an emergency. Credit ratings agency Moody's has downgraded the bonds of Ford to junk status, citing weakness in the company's financial outlook amid a lengthy restructuring plan. Moody's cut the American automaker by one notch to the non-investment grade Ba1. It said prospects for Ford's cash flow and profit margins next year and the year after are poor because of its restructuring plan, which could cost the company long term. Ford said in a statement that its underlying business is strong and its balance sheet is solid. The carmaker announced in May that it will lay off about 7,000 workers worldwide. Smartphones made by Samsung ranked #1 in the second quarter this year in Latin America, recording an all-time high market share. According to the market research firm Counterpoint, Samsung had a market share of roughly 43%, a double-digit on-year growth. Motorola came in at second with 15%, followed by Huawei with 13%. Samsung and Motorola have been the biggest winners from Huawei's loss of sales in Latin America after the US cracked down on the Chinese firm, citing national security. The channel you're watching right now, Arirang TV, will be helping Korea's small businesses reach customers when they try to enter the online market and sell overseas. It's part of a plan by the government to help these firms that often have a hard time taking the first steps in these markets. Yoon Jung-min has the details.
Small businesses will get more chances to make inroads into the fast-growing online market, including mobile shopping. The government and the ruling Democratic Party said on Tuesday that it plans to provide consulting services for small firms to help them sell their products online and advertise goods with content creators and influencers. Also, they will be given a chance to sell goods overseas through Arirang TV and global shopping malls.
To promote overseas sales, the advertisements will be aired to the world through Arirang TV, and we plan to hold consulting conferences to enter global shopping malls. Also, the product promotion will be linked to global K-Wave events, such as the Mnet Asia Music Awards.
The online market has grown more than twofold over the past 5 years in South Korea, but small shop owners often have limited access to enter the market due to a lack of information and manpower. That's according to the Ministry of SMEs and Startups. Small shops will be able to sell goods using smart technology such as smart orders, smart mirrors, or smart maps to facilitate delivery services or manage their business. Also, gift certificates used in traditional markets and small shops will be increased by some $839 million to $4.6 billion. To boost the traditional markets, more events and tour packages will be available. Small businesses with a low credit rating will be eligible for more loans as the government and the party look to raise financial accessibility for such firms. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
In other news, it seems the odds aren't in the favour of British Prime Minister Boris Johnson in his push to fulfil Brexit by October 31st, with or without a deal. On Monday, Johnson shut down Parliament after facing another significant setback in his plan to stick to the deadline. Oh Soo-young reports.
For the second time, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson failed to gather support from MPs to call for an early general election before he shut down Parliament on Monday night.
Why are they conniving to delay Brexit in defiance of the referendum? The only possible explanation is that they fear that we will win it, Mr. Speaker. I will win it and secure a renewed mandate to take this country out of the EU.
Lawmakers once again voted down a snap election as they see it as an attempt to circumvent a new legislation designed to prevent a no-deal Brexit. It requires the UK to delay the departure date to January 31st next year, unless MPs agree on an exit plan with or without a deal by October 19th. Johnson, however, has refused to delay the departure date any further. He said the government will use the 5-week suspension of Parliament to work on negotiations with Brussels, while preparing to leave without one. The move triggered harsh criticism from Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn, who called it an attempt to silence the opposition.
Government ministers have offered no explanation of the deal they are seeking, even if there is such a deal they're seeking, let alone any worked-out proposals presented to Parliament for scrutiny. No wonder they're so keen to prorogue so early to avoid any scrutiny of what they're doing.
to scale up pressure on Downing Street. MPs also voted on Monday to force the government to publish private messages and detailed plans on a no-deal scenario, and its move to suspend Parliament. House of Commons Speaker John Bercow also announced his resignation, showing anger over the prorogation. After 10 years in service, Bercow said he'll stand down as Speaker and MP at the next election or on October 31st if there is no early election. This means his successor would be selected by the current Parliament, which does not have a majority to back Johnson's Brexit plans. Parliamentary sessions will resume on October 14th. Woo Soo-young, Arirang News.
The International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies has allocated $57,000 as emergency aid for North Koreans affected by Typhoon Ling. According to Voice of America, the IFRC is using the fund to support 28,000 people in Hwanghae-do, Pyeongan-namdo, and Hamgyongdo provinces where the typhoon passed through over the weekend. The money was used before the storm arrived to alert people of its path and the damage it might cause, and afterwards it's being used for on-the-ground surveys. The Red Cross is distributing essential relief to the elderly, pregnant women, and the disabled. It says that the typhoon will mean a smaller harvest for the north this fall. The United Nations Human Rights Council says climate change has become the biggest global threat to human rights. The council pointed to global warming for increased hunger, migration, and conflict. Our Kim Da-mi has the story.
The UN has warned that climate change is the greatest ever threat to human rights. That message came during the 42nd Human Rights Council in Geneva on Monday.
Climate change is a reality that now affects every region of the world. The human implications of currently projected levels of global heating are catastrophic.
Adding that the world has never seen a threat to human rights on this scale, the UN Human Rights Chief highlighted it's now become a situation where no country, institution, or policymaker can stand on the sidelines.
The economies of all nations, the institutional, political, social, and cultural fabric of every state, and the right of all your people and future generations will be impacted. Excellencies, the window of opportunity for action may be closing, but there is still time to act.
Bachelet then blamed climate change for civil wars and the plight of indigenous people in the Amazon. Denouncing the drastic acceleration of Amazon deforestation, she urged the leaders of Bolivia and Brazil ensure the implementation of long-standing environmental policies to prevent future tragedies. She also lamented that policies in the U.S., Mexico, and some Central American countries are putting migrants at heightened risk of human rights violations and abuse. She specifically noted that she was alarmed that migrant children are still being held in detention centers in the U.S. and Mexico. The human rights chief also expressed deep concerns over global struggles related to human rights, including Israel demolishing Palestinian homes in East Jerusalem. The 3-week-long council will review around 90 human rights reports filed by 25 human rights experts and groups. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
Every year since 2004, September 10th has been observed as World Suicide Prevention Day. The aim is to raise awareness of the issue and find ways to stop people from taking their own lives. South Korea has one of the highest suicide rates in the developed world, and to this, the government has called for a national observance. Our Ji-young has more.
Data suggests that globally, someone takes their life every 40 seconds. According to new figures published Monday by the World Health Organization, the number of suicides around the world in 2016, standard by age, was 10.5 per every 100,000 people. The WHO in its report said one important way the global suicide rate can be brought down is to restrict access to pesticides which can be used for self-poisoning. For instance, Sri Lanka's suicide rate from 1995 to 2015 dropped by a whopping 70% after certain dangerous pesticides were banned. Similar measures in South Korea reduced suicide numbers by half from 2011 to 2013. Despite these efforts, South Korea's suicide rate has been the highest among the OECD countries since 2005. The rate in 2017 stood at 24.3 people in every 100,000. The first World Suicide Prevention Day was commemorated on September 10, 2004. In 2011, South Korea made National Suicide Prevention Day a national observance and designated the week starting on that date as Suicide Prevention Week to educate people, raise awareness, and ultimately prevent people from taking their own lives. Just this Monday, ahead of this year's observance, the government launched a National Suicide Prevention Committee. Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon, who chairs it, said the current administration is the first to put the issue at the top of the national agenda.
It is important to set up a tight safety net in local communities to prevent suicide. We can prevent suicide only when more local communities work together.
The committee is planning to push forward with various programs such as a care system for senior citizens living alone, doing more to protect the vulnerable, and running community mental health centers and encouraging respect for life. 엄지영, Arirang News.
South Korea was set to launch a prototype orbiter to the moon in December 2020, but the Ministry of Science said today that it'll postpone the launch by about a year and a half to July 2022. The delay, it said, is because the engineers have found that the orbiter in its current design would end up weighing about 130 kilograms more than they planned. The committee in charge has therefore decided to adjust the spacecraft's orbit to save fuel. So when the spacecraft gets to the moon, instead of a one-year circular orbit, it'll do 9 months in an ellipse and 3 months in a circle. A longer design period means an extra cost of about $13 million. This is the second time the Moon administration has delayed the launch.
The Korea Development Bank and the Industrial Bank of Korea have decided to postpone loan repayments by up to 1 year for companies affected by Typhoon Lingling. Commercial banks have also proposed plans for recovery loans at low rates, and the National Tax Service is offering assistance with taxes. It will extend the tax due date by up to 9 months for those who apply. Google is facing an antitrust investigation by 48 US states for alleged monopolistic behavior. In a news conference Monday, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, one of the probe's leaders, said Google dominates all aspects of internet advertising and search. He noted that this is an investigation and not yet a lawsuit. The states of California and Alabama have not yet joined the bipartisan probe. Google has reportedly declined to comment, pointing to earlier statements that it will work with state officials. Just last Friday, 8 states and the District of Columbia announced an investigation into Facebook for similar reasons. The South Korean men's national football team will play Turkmenistan tonight in a World Cup qualifier. Kickoff is at 11 p.m. Korea time. This is the second round of the Asian qualifiers for the 2022 World Cup. South Korea have also been grouped with North Korea, Lebanon and Sri Lanka in Group H. This is Team Korea's first qualifier under their new coach, Paolo Bento. Korea's main and largest royal palace, Gyeongbokgung, is launching new guided tours in Indonesian and Vietnamese for free. Tours in Indonesian will start on September 21st, while the Vietnamese service is expected to be launched early November. Visitors will be able to learn about the royal palace in Indonesian every Wednesday and Saturday 3 times a day at 9:20 a.m., 11 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. Each tour will begin in front of the information board next to the Hungnaemun Gate, which is the second inner gate into the palace. That has been your 3-minute news flash. It is that time now where we take a look at some of Arirang's digital media content.
And today we have another episode of When in Korea or Wink with Justin.
마이크 테스트 1, 2. 그래서 오늘 촬영이 뭔데요? 계속 비밀로.
사실 저스틴을 보고
네.
저희 팀에서 말이 많아요.
왜요?
스타일이 너무 구리다.
아, 스타일이 구리다고?
맨날 똑같은
That's a
옷만
diss. I'm offended. 편하게 입으라며요, 피디님이.
입고 맨날 체크나만만 입냐.
그거 우리 아버지 건데. 진짜 아빠가 준 거라. These aren't warmers. 안 더워, 이거. 되게 시원해, 이거. 쿨링 바지, you know?
그래서 오늘 저희가 저스틴을 위해서 특별 코디를 받을 거예요.
아, 오늘 에피소드가 코디예요?
네, 어서 오세요.
안녕하세요. 안녕하세요. 반갑습니다. 저 저스틴입니다. 네, 오늘
저는 시스타입니다.
시스타? 그럼 일단 뭐부터 하면 되죠?
진짜 신기하게 전 세계 모든 인종은 웜톤 아니면 쿨톤이에요.
아, 그게 딱 분리가 돼요?
네, 봄, 여름, 가을, 겨울 있죠. 여기 중에서 나한테 제일 잘 어울리는 컬러가 뭔지 찾는 게 퍼스널 컬러예요. 화장을 하지 않아도 화장할 효과가 있고 상대방한테 호감을 불러주기에 가장 탁월한 요소가 얼굴에서 빛이 나는 효과가 있어요. 왜 이렇게 느끼해? 이제 본격적으로 퍼스널 컬러 진단을 시작해 보겠습니다.
근데 이게 사람마다 다른 거 같아요.
맞아요. 사람마다 다 달라요. 보시면은 이게 따뜻한 봄의 핑크색, 차가운 핑크. 아, 이건 가을 핑크인데 이건 조금 약간 나이 들어 보이는 느낌 들죠. 그다음에 겨울 핑크 있는데 겨울 되게 잘 어울리는데? 겨울 엄청 잘 어울려요.
I'm really excited. 좀 이쁘게 아이돌 스타일로
아이돌
연하게.
스타일로 제가
오케이.
해드릴게요. 아이돌 메이크업의 특징이 뭐냐면 그윽한 눈매예요. 호수 같은 눈. 점막을 살짝 채워드릴게요. 간지러워도 조금만 참아주세요. 조금만 참아줘요. 다 끝났어. 됐어.
으아.
아이돌 메이크업의 특징.
촉촉해졌네, 눈물 때문에.
티 안 나게 눈매가 또렷해지는 방법 중에 하나가 여기에 있는 눈 점막을 살짝 반만 채우는 거예요. 검은색이 아니라 브라운 컬러로. 이제 바로 체형별 코디를 한번 들어가 볼게요. 일단 키가 좀 크고 약간 마르신 편이기 때문에 뭐든지 레이어링을 많이 해서 입으시는 거를 추천을 해요. 지금 보시면은 여름의 스타일링이라도 몸에 밀착되지 않게끔 살짝 루즈 핏으로 옷을 입어주고 청바지 고르는 팁을 알려드릴게요. 전체적으로 몸이 스키니 하시기 때문에 스키니 핏 추천 안 해드려요. 위에 진한 블랙 티셔츠를 입었기 때문에 밑엔 연청, 아이스청. 레깅스 좀 벗어 던지고.
So we came emergency shopping to Hongdae because Hongdae is known for like the fashion street where you can buy clothes. And I think this is what we're looking for. I hope so. Ta-da! How's the color? Looks good? Yeah? 네, 훨씬 잘생겼어요. 선생님 덕분에 자신감 있게 레깅스에서 벗어날 수 있었습니다.
스머프.
More rain is expected for the central region, including Seoul, until tomorrow.
Let's get more on the weather from our Michelle Park, who is at the Weather Center for us. Michelle.
Now, a northern cold pressure system is colliding with hot air, forming strong rain clouds. Now, rainy conditions will continue to dominate the forecast tomorrow with a heavy rain advisory issued for the central region. By tomorrow morning, though, the rain will start to taper in the capital, but it will take longer for the southern provinces. And scattered thunderstorms will become more widespread. Until tomorrow, some parts of the central region and western areas of Gangwon province will receive a bucket load of rain of up to 200 millimeters. Now, whereas in the south will be between 5 to 40 millimeters. Now, going over to our temperature readings for tomorrow, morning lows will be a few notches cooler than today, with Seoul getting up to 23 degrees Celsius, while Daegu and Gyeongju both begins the day at 22 degrees. And the daytime highs are still hot despite the rain. Seoul will climb up to 28 degrees, while Gwangju, Daegu, and Gyeongju will top out to 30 degrees. Now, there will be no great inconvenience in traveling home for the Chuseok holiday, as the nation will be under mild weather. But then there's rain again on Saturday. However, the amount of precipitation will be very little, and it won't interfere with the traffic. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That will wrap up this edition of Arirang News Centre. Thank you as always for watching.
Stay tuned for News in Depth coming up next.